The maid begged the lady with a trembling voice to stop it. A few moments later, a loud bang was heard. The blonde collapsed to the floor, her face twisted in pain. The aristocrat, without a shred of sympathy, tore the blonde girl's cap off. The lady's face was distorted with anger. She was clutching sharp scissors tightly in her hands. Strands of snow-white hair were slowly falling to the floor. The maid begged him to stop and cease. The aristocrat, grinning maliciously, assured him that the girl looked much better that way. Lowering her sky-blue eyes, the girl asked for forgiveness once more. Sadness and fear filled her. Vesti mockingly pointed out to the worker that the floor was a complete mess. She ordered it to be cleaned up immediately. The maid sat down and began to clean up. The aristocrat said that she did not want to see clumps of cut hair. Vesti warned the worker that she would cut off all her hair without a shadow of a doubt. The lady reminded that she liked it when there was warm water in her wash basin. Having gathered all the cut hair into the hem of her dress, the maid left the room. The doors slammed shut with a bang. Holding her cheek, swollen from the blow, the worker was glad that nothing worse had happened. Vesti was the only daughter of Mr. Paul. Being the only daughter of an innkeeper, the girl achieved her goals no matter what. The maid realized that she needed to get some sleep. She knew that another hard day of work lay ahead of her. The leaves slowly swirled in the air currents and fell to the ground. The morning sun illuminated the sky with pastel colors. The city streets were empty. The bright rays woke up the rooster, who began to crow. The girl realized that she had lived in this tavern for most of her life. The maid was an orphan without a penny in her pocket. She consoled herself in this way by putting on her uniform. Mr. Paul was kind enough to take in the orphan, but he did not pay her for her work. From early morning, she helped her master's daughter to get ready, and then brought breakfast. Then she cleared the table and washed the dishes. Because of the hard work, the girl often thought about running away. But now she was going to meet the guests of the tavern. The girl politely asked the couple how many people they needed a table for. The only thing that kept her from running away was the fact that life would hardly get any better after that. The guests were happy to eat delicious food. The tavern was crowded because of the festival. She did everything possible not to show herself in a bad light. And every day she worked hard. The maid had to start preparing food for the guests from the very morning. Vesti told the worker in a rude tone that her hair was sticking out from under her headdress. The innkeeper's daughter noticed that she dared to touch the cap with dirty hands. The worker began to apologize. The girl noticed that the maid had a very dirty face. Waving her hand, Vesti said that she was losing her appetite. The little girl ordered the maid to wash herself immediately. The sadist told the orphan that she had to hide her hair. The innkeeper's daughter reported that some men had been walking around asking about a girl with silver hair. After biting the red apple, the girl assured that the blacksmith Eddie had told her about it. The girl assumed that one of the nobility was looking for a new toy. The worker was amazed because Vesti knew much more than she did. Almost all the women from the slums had the same fate. If they were lucky, they could get jobs as maids. The girl was warned that in the worst case, she would have to become a low-class courtesan. The girl had no luck in life, but she planned to stay in the tavern no matter what. Rin greeted the woman and asked Josephine to give her a couple of chicken legs. She was outraged at where Paul spent his hard-earned money. She asked if the master had beaten the maid. Smiling, the orphan assured that it did not happen as often as before. She had long been accustomed to such treatment. The saleswoman said she couldn't stand the man, knowing how he treated the baby. The woman said she put in more than usual. She asked the girl to eat a little when Paul was not around. Some hope appeared in the orphan's eyes, and she sincerely thanked the woman. It pained Josephine to look at the frowning expression on the orphan's face, since she had always smiled while her mother was alive. Someone touched Rin's shoulder. The guy greeted her with a cheerful smile and asked if she was carrying out the innkeeper's order. The maid reported that the inn had run out of food. Minos noted that their meetings had become rare since she had started working there. The friend thoughtfully handed her several skewers of juicy meat. The girl said that she needed to get back before Paul came looking for her. Minos jokingly said that his hands were going to fall off if no one took the fresh kebabs. The worker thanked him and took 2 skewers. The guy grinned and said that she could take everything since he had enough food. She promised to treat him next time. A friend told her that he would be working for a noble family. The girl, with noticeable disappointment in her voice, assumed that they would never see each other again. Smiling, he hoped that she would spend time with him when he came to his hometown. Minos extended his hand and said that he wanted her to promise him this on her little fingers. The friend informed Rin that she should stay off the streets for a few days. The girl assumed that he meant men who were looking for girls with silver hair. The maid explained that Vesti had told her this. The guy was sure that it was better to be safe than sorry. The worker said she was returning from the store. Paul roughly grabbed her by the cap, tearing off her headdress. The little girl said she regretted being late. One of the guests asked whether this girl was the one the gentleman was looking for. The guys in business suits took a closer look at the little girl, realizing that she matched their appearance. Paul asked where his reward was. Soon a bag of coins was thrown to the innkeeper. The orphan knelt down and asked what it meant. Vesti approached the girl and asked if she hadn't realized yet that she had a new owner. Gubianka explained that someone had bought the baby from them. The worker fell to her knees and begged him not to do it. The girl promised to wash twice a day from now on. She said she was ready to work even without food. The man angrily hit the orphan, causing her to collapse on the cold tiles. Rin lay there for a few moments, moaning in pain. Laughing, the master's daughter reminded her that she had told the girl that silver hair would ruin her. Vesti asked not to forget her if she suddenly became the mistress of some old aristocrat. The door slammed loudly. The baby, overcoming the pain, tried to get up. Rin asked what would happen to her. The buyers approached her quite quickly. They suggested that she get into the carriage first. The maid carefully washed her new colleague. The woman was horrified to see the state of the baby's skinny body. She assured that it would be quite difficult to serve Milady Elizabeth in such a state. After changing Rin's clothes, the woman looked with admiration at the work done and assured that the new arrival thus began to look much better. She invited the girl to the table, saying that she would need strength. The blonde advised her not to rush, warning that she could choke. The girl asked the customers what she would have to do. The guy said that the new maid would do things that a lady shouldn't do. She said that her colleague could come in whenever she wanted to eat. Rin was very worried because she did not fully understand what she was supposed to do. After a delicious meal, the orphan realized that life in the duchy would not be so bad. More than a week had passed since the new worker had arrived at the estate. Rin had yet to meet her new mistress. To our heroine's surprise, life in the estate turned out to be much calmer than in the tavern. The man said that he had found the person the lady had spoken of. Rin greeted Lady Elizabeth with a voice trembling with excitement and introduced herself. The lady sternly ordered the little girl to take off her cap. The Duchess was amazed that the little girl really had silver hair. Elizabeth said that the maid should always be near her. The mistress ran up, touched the hands of the new maid, and looked into her deep eyes. The girl said that they would meet in her class. Rin's heart was almost jumping out of her chest. The Duchess praised Martin for his impeccable work. They were soon walking down the corridor. The lady reported that he was right, and the girl had the same silver hair as Her Highness Regina. Dreamily folding her hands, Elizabeth realized that everything had stopped much more interestingly. The teacher asked if the girl had finished the history homework she had assigned. The woman winced and noticed that the student had made the same mistakes as last time. She said that she had no choice but to punish the negligent student. Rin obediently extended her hand and endured several blows with the pointer. The girl was disappointed because the teacher said she would check her homework next week. The maid realized that her job was to receive punishment in place of her mistress. The governess was not allowed to punish a noble lady, which is why someone was needed to take the punishment in her place. Elizabeth loved it when her new maid was beaten. The orphan realized that this was not quite the job she had expected. The girl supported herself by saying that it was much better than working in a tavern. The worker hoped that it would make Lady Elizabeth happy. The slightly confused boy asked Rin who she was. The maid shuddered and came out of her thoughts. She didn't know who was standing in front of her because of the bright sun. The brunette noticed that there was blood on her face and carefully wiped it with his handkerchief. He shared that it was his secret place. The guy was amazed that someone was dozing there. The maid realized that a divinely handsome stranger stood before her. This was how she first met Lord Martin, the heir to the Duchy of Ariuput. Rin felt a strange sensation, as if a flock of butterflies were fluttering in her stomach. Soon the girl was called by her mistress. She ran but felt as if her heart was being torn out of her chest. For a few moments the girl froze, putting her hand to her heart which was jumping out of her chest. The lady asked if she knew how long she had been calling her. Bowing, the orphan asked for forgiveness. Elizabeth slapped the maid in anger. The aristocrat asked why the girl was daydreaming. Rin noticed that the lady had strong mood swings. Elizabeth had even more of a sadistic streak than Westy. The maid realized that on days when her mistress was not in the mood, all she could do was beg for mercy. The little girl asked for forgiveness, assuring that she would not do it again. Marvin informed the lady that she should study the base of the flag of the Empire of the Throne. The student snorted that she didn't need to know about some stupid flag. She asked the maid to go to the library and get some books. Rin asked the lady what books she should bring. The girl got very angry from such stupid questions. The Duchess suggested that she should knock some sense into the servants' stupid heads. Elizabeth was kind enough to the girl to teach her to read and write. The maid realized that her mistress was doing this only so that she would do her homework. The orphan realized that the assignment was much better than receiving punishment from the governess Luther. The girl was delighted that she had the opportunity to visit the library. She walked with pleasure between the majestic shelves with various literature. The air was filled with the smell of old books. Almost all the books published in the empire were collected in this place. Rin, clutching the book in her hands, realized that someday she would have a day off to read all day. The girl decided to play it safe and take another book. Because of her short stature, it was quite difficult for her to reach it. The orphan lost her balance and almost fell down. But a stranger from the garden caught her. The guy said he didn't want to scare her. Very embarrassed, she assured the young gentleman that everything was fine. She felt like her heart was about to burst out of her chest. The handsome man glanced at the books she was collecting for a few moments. The guy guessed that she was looking for the base of the flag of the Empire of the Throne. The maid reported that Lady Elizabeth ordered to bring her some books. The brunette was amazed that the mistress ordered the girl to bring several books, since it was part of the homework. The boy snorted that Elizabeth was a terrible student. The maid asked him to pretend he hadn't seen her in the library. Taking a quick look at the covers, the handsome man said that these 3 books would not be enough. The guy explained that the governess was quite difficult to please. He began to approach the maid, causing her to suddenly lower her gaze. Hanging over her, the handsome man asked if his help was needed. He assured her that he had studied the topic before. The guy deftly tore off her headdress. The handsome man assured her that she had very beautiful and luxurious hair. He asked if anyone had told the girl this before. The aristocrat compared her silver hair to the Milky Way. Our heroine was very confused by this, since no one had ever said anything like that to her before. Many criticized the fact that a commoner had the same hair color as the ruling family. They pointed fingers and gossiped behind her back. The gentleman suggested that she walk as she felt comfortable. The maid, clutching the cap tightly in her hands, said that she would do it for the gentleman. He realized that the new maid was much nicer than he thought. The god of beauty praised her, telling her that she shouldn't hide such luxurious hair under a cap. He quickly began to collect the necessary textbooks. The aristocrat said that he would look forward to the next meeting. He said that he was eager to admire her luxurious hair some more. The guy noticed that the girl's entire body was covered with numerous scars. The aristocrat understood that this was too cruel even for Elizabeth. Opening the window, he let fresh air into the library. The guy dreamed of seeing her again. The governess asked Lady Elizabeth to tell the truth. The woman clarified that it was not she who did the homework. Luther explained that the task was on a different level than she expected from the young lady. The woman realized that the aristocrat had received help from someone. At that moment, a small shudder ran through Rin's body. The woman said that she would close her eyes to this incident for the last time. The governess explained that if the lady received help again, she would be forced to inform the young lady's father about it. Elizabeth was shocked that she had caught her in a lie. Luther reported that this homework assignment was much better written than the previous ones. The aristocrat threw down her glass in anger, announcing that she was more than educated to write a fine essay. The young lady was furious that she dared to say that she would go to her father. The governess knew that she had to stop because Rin could die. Luther told the lady that she believed her. The aristocrat clenched her teeth and approached Rin. The lady angrily tore off the cap. Elizabeth assumed that it was her fault, and she deserved punishment. Approaching the servant, the girl began to beat her furiously. Those present could not bear such a sight and turned away. The governess informed the lady that this punishment was enough. The girl reminded that she said that the homework was too high level. Tears slowly started to flow from the orphan's face, and her breath caught in the furious pain. The aristocrat reminded her that she had disappointed her mistress and deserved punishment. The girl hoped that next time she won't be disappointed when she hands in her homework. Tightly squeezing the maid's hair, Elizabeth promised to be more attentive. The governess informed the young lady that the lesson was over. The bitch looked sternly at her victim and ordered her not to catch her eye. After Elizabeth left, Luther asked the little girl if she could stand up. Smiling, the orphan said that she was okay. The girl thanked her for looking after her. Luther wondered why Milady hated Rin so much. With each lesson, the conflict between Luther and the young lady became worse, as did the punishments. The orphan did not know how hard the mistress would beat her next time. The girl stopped, scared and sad. Only the lake behind the manor gave Rin any comfort. The lame maid realized that she needed to get to her favorite place as soon as possible. Only the lake gave her at least a little peace and comfort in sad moments. The orphan remembered that the previous duchess loved this place. It also gave the little girl peace of mind. Taking some cool, clear water into her palms, Rin was glad that no one else came there. She looked at her own trembling reflection on the surface of the water. The maid was eager to gain Elizabeth's favor. Often the beatings were accompanied by insults and incredible cruelty. The girl assumed that she reminded Milady of someone she greatly despised. Rin understood that such thoughts would not change anything. The little girl felt that she would spend the rest of her days like this. When the orphan first came to the duchy, she had hope for a better life in her soul. Rin despised this place with all her soul. Someone called out to her. The little girl tried to find her interlocutor with her head. The guy said that he was upstairs. The handsome man noted that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. A little confused by the fact that someone had heard her thoughts, the girl greeted the young gentleman. Martin asked what happened to her face. The guy noticed a lot of beatings. The handsome guy asked who beat the maid. The girl covered her swollen face with her hands and said that there was nothing wrong with it. The guy assumed that it was Elizabeth's doing. The aristocrat suggested that he should ask the lady himself. Falling to her knees, the maid begged the young master not to do it. The orphan explained that if he asked Elizabeth about it, he would cause her a lot of problems. The guy could not understand why she told me about what happened. He promised to keep it a secret. Martin said that she could nod if the answer was yes and shake her head if the answer was no. With beads of cold sweat on her face, the maid nodded. The young master could not understand when his sister would finally come to her senses. The girl said that she was fine. The maid assured that if he talked to the mistress, she would have even more trouble. The orphan realized that she could not tell the boy the truth because her mistress was his younger sister. The handsome man took something out of his pocket and said that he wanted the girl to try it. Rin thanked him for his generosity. The aristocrat could not understand how she could thank him without even knowing what he was going to give her. With a trembling voice, the little girl asked for forgiveness. Stroking the maid's snow-white silky hair, the guy said that he was just joking. Martin promised to give her treats whenever he had the chance. Rin was amazed that the most handsome guy she had ever seen was making kind gestures towards her. The baby's heart fluttered from the warmth that she had almost never experienced in her life. Violence was the only form of communication she ever encountered. Pain and fear were part of her daily life. Martin was the only person who treated her well after her mother died. The orphan's heart began to pound as if it wanted to burst out of her chest. The aristocrat asked her if she was feeling ill, noticing how her face had turned red. The maid, slightly embarrassed, said that she was perfectly fine. The guy approached her face and asked if she had a temperature. Stepping back, the poor thing said that everything was fine. The aristocrat carefully placed a chocolate candy in her mouth. The pupil narrowed with pleasure. The maid had never tasted anything so delicious and sweet. Stroking her silky hair, Martin said that he was glad that she liked this delicacy. The girl couldn't understand why her heart started beating faster. She assumed that it was the sweetness of the chocolate or the handsome smile of the young gentleman. The guy asked if it was time for her to go to the lady. The aristocrat said that they had been in this place for quite a long time. The orphan hurried to the estate. He said that he would look forward to seeing her a little later. Rin began to worry about how much she could be beaten again during her long absence. The girl smiled and realized that there was nothing wrong with it since she was able to spend time with Martin. The guy felt a little offended that he wouldn't be able to see her for a long time. Rin consoled herself with the fact that Lady Elizabeth was still in bed. The maid slightly parted the curtains to wake her lady with a beam of bright light. The maid realized that she was close to making the aristocrat wake up in a good mood. The girl understood that she would throw everything she could get her hands on at her. Elizabeth asked in a hoarse voice to bring a glass of water. The lady asked where she had been. The young lady was sure that Rin would immediately follow her. The aristocrat asked if she knew how uncomfortable she was. Elizabeth was very annoyed that she had to fall asleep alone. The girl understood that this was a complete lie, since the Duchess had many other maids serving her. The orphan saw Mirelle follow her ladyship before she went into the garden. The girl asked where she was going. Rin assured that she was in the kitchen. The orphan said that she asked to prepare snacks for the lady. Pomraknev the aristocrat asked if she was a pig. She showed displeasure by wrinkling her face. The maid reported that she knew how Elizabeth loved to enjoy Camille after her afternoon nap. The young lady sighed heavily and asked to bring her dessert. The cook greeted her colleague and assumed that she had come for snacks for the lady. The little girl asked if the woman could give her the cannelli she had asked for earlier. The cook said that she had been expecting her to arrive around that time. The worker handed over one of the desserts and said that the dessert was the wrong shape, which is why she could not serve it. The orphan thanked her colleague for looking after her. The woman said she knew that her ladyship had beaten the little girl again. The cook expected the young lady to learn to control her emotions. Rin reported that this day was not so bad. The colleague advised the girl to hurry so that Elizabeth would not get angry again. The woman was incredibly offended that the lady treated the hard-working girl so badly. Miruel said it would be better if they went together. The little girl said the lady ordered her to go alone. A colleague had warned her that there were wild animals there. Rin knew there was a reason for sending her into the forest at such a late hour. Elizabeth was to receive a guest who was madly in love with wild strawberries. The girl walked slowly along the forest path illuminated by the moonlight. The orphan realized that such work should be done in pairs. She reassured herself that everything would be fine if she hurried. Rin had hopes of running into the young master again. It was painful for the girl to realize that Martin would soon be going to the academy. She realized that she would no longer be able to see Martin often. The orphan heard a sharudin in the bushes, which made her shudder and fall to the ground. Seeing the eyes glowing in the dark, she mentally begged for mercy. A luxurious carriage was driving along one of the forest paths. One of the horses jerked sharply upon hearing a loud sound. The young gentleman asked what had happened. The coachman reported that the horses had been frightened by a cry coming from the depths of the forest. The man reported that the sound stopped quickly and sounded like someone screaming. The aristocrat realized that they were not far from the duchy. He was sure that there were no dangerous animals nearby. The girl screamed when she heard a menacing roar. The cold moonlight snatched the silhouette of a deer from the darkness. Rin felt some relief when she realized it was just a deer. The maid was horrified when she realized she had spilled a basket of wild berries. The orphan understood that too much time had passed and it was time for her to return. The cook was incredibly happy that her colleague brought a whole basket of fragrant wild strawberries. The woman reported that Rin had done a great job and advised her to rest a little. The little girl said that she had to go to the mistress before going to bed. Colleagues asked Rin why she stood there carelessly when their dear guest arrived. The girls explained that Mistress Elizabeth had told everyone to come. Lord Hargreaves had arrived. When the guy stood at the front door, all the female workers greeted him with a bow. Philip greeted his friend coldly. The young lady rushed to the guest with open arms, saying that she had missed him very much. The lord thanked Elizabeth for her warm greeting. Having made a curtsy, the girl suggested following her into the living room. The maid assumed that Elizabeth liked the young master very much. Muriel reported that the lord was the opposite of Master Martin. The friend assumed that Philip had come a long way. The guy said that there was no need to worry, saying that he arrived in high spirits, wanting to reunite with his old friend. Elizabeth was outraged because the object of her affections did not miss her at all. The lord assured her that this was not so. A radiant smile immediately appeared on the young lady's face. The guy noticed that the aristocrat had a new servant with silver hair. Philip reported that he had seen this person before. The lady of the estate was furious that he was interested in some servant. The admirer reminded him that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. Having ruffled her raven-colored hair, the gentleman assured him that she always comes first for him. Elizabeth reported that he almost brought her to tears. The girl told her lover that the forest surrounding the estate was very beautiful, and suggested having a picnic there. Interrupting her, her brother said that the guest had just arrived. The lord told his friend that he was fine and would be happy to go on a picnic. Milady asked the maids to prepare a picnic basket. The girl planned to go to the forest on horseback. Martin asked his sister how far she wanted to go. The aristocrat assured him that the farthest corners of the forest were the most beautiful. The girl said that she ordered the servants to inspect the territory. Elizabeth said that the maid should show them the way. Muriel suggested that she should follow the little one. The orphan reported that everything was fine and Milady refused to take her on the picnic. The colleague did not understand why the mistress took only her personal maid. The girl realized that the basket was too heavy for one person. Rin assumed that the mistress was not comfortable taking two servants with her. She thanked her for her work and promised to take some of the laundry. The little girl said that she should thank her friend for her help. The Duchess walked along the forest paths in high spirits. A light breeze blew her thick hair. She was glad that there was no rain on this beautiful day. Philip asked his friend if she was ready to start eating. The aristocrats exchanged compliments. The lord noticed the maid's heavy burden and offered his help. The little girl assured him that everything was fine. Rin almost fell after tripping over a small stone, but the Lord didn't let that happen. Philip asked if everything was okay with the girl. The orphan ate so much that she did not anger the lady. The sound of hooves was barely audible as the horses stepped on the soft grass. After a short time, the company reached a small lake on the edge of the forest. Sunbeams played on the surface of the water and moss-covered stones. Smiling, the young lord said that he could never have imagined that the forest could be so beautiful. The lady suggested stopping at this wonderful place. Rin was confused because it was the first time in her life she had ridden a horse. The boy approached her and said that getting off the horse was not so easy. The young gentleman extended his helping hand to the orphan. Philip assumed that she had never had any experience riding a horse. The maid swallowed nervously and felt her mistress's disdainful gaze. Rin already imagined that the mistress would become her after returning. Her gaze did not promise to let the maid get away with such a thing. The lord was amazed at how much food was on their tablecloth. He invited the servants to join them in their meal. The orphan assured them that everything was fine, and she was fine there. The gentleman said that he felt uncomfortable because the girl was standing away from them. He asked her to come over and pour him a cup of fresh tea. Martin assured that it was not necessary to bow like that. The Duke reported that they were all alone in the middle of the forest. Smiling, the lady said that the guys were right and invited the maid to sit down next to her. The baby began to enjoy the chirping of birds. She was completely alone. Goldfish swam slowly in the calm pond. Rin pretended that this was just a fleeting moment. She decided to enjoy the moment while she could. Lord asked her friend if he was going to the academy. Philip asked if he was prepared. The guy asked the Duke if he was going to join the Brotherhood. He sighed heavily and explained that the Brotherhood was not a place where one could join of one's own free will. Elizabeth said that she would be lonely when they went to the academy. The boys said that they would come during the holidays. The lady said that Philip should come to visit her more often. Rin got up from her seat and asked the lady for permission to take a little walk around the area. Having received permission, the maid said that she would return soon. The girl understood that the Imperial Academy of the Throne was also a military school. The maid knew that this establishment did not accept girls. Before his arrival, the days at the estate were dark and depressing. Meeting Martin was a reward and a ray of light for the orphan. The girl decided to soak her tired feet in the cool water of the stream. Rin noticed a scattering of wild strawberries in the clearing. The maid remembered that Philippe was madly in love with this berry. Having put many small berries in the hem of her dress, the little girl assumed that this was enough. She was sure that this arrangement would please the lady. The lady asked where Rin had gone. She was very angry when she saw the girl because she had not responded for a long time. Elizabeth reported that punishment awaited her as soon as they returned to the estate. The aristocrat tripped over a small stone and almost fell into the stream. The orphan did not let the lady get wet, taking this fate upon herself. Rin fell into the clear, cool water. The maid was glad that her mistress did not get wet. The aristocrat asked how many times she would have to punish the girl to set her mind straight. The maid involuntarily screamed, realizing what awaited her. The lord asked his girlfriend what had happened. A slight shudder ran through the lady's body. The guy said that they had heard loud sounds and clarified what had happened. The Duchess extended her hand and asked Rin if she was okay. The girl's face rolled with hostility. Trying to suppress her excitement, Rin reported that she was completely fine. The mistress helped her up. The lord asked if she had been hurt during the fall. Philip informed her that she needed to dry off so as not to catch a cold. The maid assured her that she was indeed fine and there was no need for that. Trying to divert attention to herself, the Duchess said that she felt dizzy. The guy said that she could lean on his shoulder. Elizabeth assumed she twisted her ankle when she tripped. The guy was glad that his friend wasn't seriously hurt and assumed that it could have been much worse. Noticing that the orphan's leg was injured, Martin suggested going back. Milady realized that everything was not going as she had planned. The aristocrat began to bite her fingers from resentment. Friends began to untie the horses. Elizabeth said she wanted to spend more time with the lord. She hissed that the maid had ruined everything, and said that she should wait for her return home. Rin noticed that the lady was more embittered than before. The maid tried to fix the situation and told the lord that Elizabeth was having difficulty walking. The girl assured him that she needed an escort to the estate. The guy said that she could go with him. Patting the girl on the shoulder, the lady said that she had done an excellent job. The lord asked the girl not to rush, assuring her that she could get hurt again. Elizabeth promised to be more careful. The orphan hoped that this would be enough to avoid trouble. Martin suggested that the maid climb onto his horse. The girl asked again uncertainly. The gentleman explained that she would not be able to return to the estate in such a state. The young man said that she would go with him. The beggar woman, embarrassed, explained that she could not do this. Elizabeth asked the girl not to keep them waiting. Rin obeyed her mistress by jumping on the horse. Soon they set off. The maid's snow-white skin instantly turned pink. She looked with admiration at the master's beautiful face. Rin's back occasionally touched Martin's chest during the horse ride. The girl felt like her heart was about to jump out of her chest the whole trip. She felt the breath that was flapping her ear. Taking off her cap, the orphan realized that the day was coming to an end. She was incredibly tired because they had started working much more since the Lord's arrival. The girl understood that the cooks were working tirelessly. One of the workers asked who wanted to try the blueberry pie she had mentioned earlier. Rena was incredibly happy that the day was finally over. Muriel suggested that they chat together with Annie a little later. The girl said that she was very tired that day. Hugging the little girl, the maid assured her that she wanted to share something interesting with them. She begged her friend to go with her. The orphan knew she should refuse, but she couldn't. Rin understood that her colleague tried her best to save her when the Duchess was furious. The little girl agreed to come for a short while. The girls walked down the long corridor of the estate. The flickering candlelight illuminated the walls. The girls hesitantly entered the door. The friends asked Annie what she wanted to tell them. The maid said that she had only just begun her story. The girl said that Jeff had recently been looking for her. The worker bragged that he had picked a beautiful snow-white rose for her in the garden. The little girl remembered that white roses were any flowers of the previous duchesses. She tightly squeezed the delicate flower in her hands. The girl said that no one would notice his disappearance. Annie said that she gave her consent. Jeff slowly touched her chin and kissed her. The orphan did not understand why men and women touched lips. The bride said that she didn't want it to end. The lucky one started asking her friend how it was. The orphan wanted to feel a kiss on herself. The little girl was sure that it was sweet and tender like chocolate. She could never have thought that such a thing was possible. She heard that when kissing, a feeling of warmth would arise in the body. Rin couldn't imagine these feelings when she heard the details from others. The orphan hoped that her first kiss with Mr. Martin would be as soft and sweet as the chocolate he treated her to. Clutching the huge bouquet of flowers tightly, the maid hoped that this would be enough to please her mistress. After the picnic, she managed to escape the mistress's wrath. The lady didn't know what to do now, since she lied about the injury on her leg and couldn't go anywhere. The aristocrat asked to make a flower arrangement for her. Rin was glad that she was not really hurt. The girl slipped on the stairs and almost fell, but Mr. Martin saved her once again. The maid's heart began to beat wildly and she thanked him. Rin looked at the sweet, soft lips of the master, dreaming of a kiss. The guy noticed that the bouquet looked quite heavy. He offered his help. The little girl assured that she could cope on her own. Smiling, Martin wished her luck. Soon the boy went about his business. The girl realized that she could not stop looking at the lips of the young gentleman. She wanted to press her lips to his. The orphan realized that her wish would never come true. The worker dropped one flower in her thoughts. The maid realized that she used to enjoy watching the guy from afar. More and more often, Rin found herself wanting more. She realized that a simple maid couldn't even dream of meeting the young master. The orphan understood that she needed to overcome her attraction and do it as quickly as possible. Martin opened the curtains in his friend's room and let in the bright rays of sunlight. The Lord mumbled that he would not be able to get up. The friend reminded Philip that he wanted to hunt birds. The aristocrat did not understand how he could go hunting at such an early hour. The guy said that he could not get out of bed at such an early hour. With some resentment, the Duke assured that he had cancelled all his plans for this. The friend noted that Martin could be heartless and did not even sympathize with him when he fell ill. The Lord explained that he did not want to get even sicker. The owner of the estate snorted that someone was weak and said that he would go hunting alone. The aristocrat explained that he did not want to change his plans. The friend asked if he was going to go alone. Martin assured that he would take a guide with him. The friend was intrigued by who exactly. The brother said that he was going to enter her room now. The guy asked how Elizabeth felt after the injury. Milady reported that she felt much better. The girl asked what brought her brother to her, reminding him that he was going to hunt. Martin admitted that he wanted to ask her for a favor. The aristocrat noticed that his sister's maid knew her way around the forest quite well. The guy asked to take Elizabeth with him as a servant. A little confused, the lady asked who he meant. Martin explained that he wanted to take the girl with silver hair with him. The sister said that she should be back any minute. The guy assured that he would wait for his conductor at this place. The maid asked if the gentleman wanted a cup of freshly brewed tea. Elizabeth found her brother's behavior up to this point suspicious, as he had shown no interest in the maids. The girl could not understand why he wanted to borrow her personal maid for that day. The chestnut horse's hooves softly stepped on the soft forest floor. Rin sat uncertainly behind the master, clinging tightly to his back. The guy asked her to relax, assuming that she was still afraid of horses. The maid promised to do everything for the young master. She was incredibly nervous. The orphan was so close to the object of her affections by order of her mistress. Rin was amazed that the gentleman knew where to go, but still asked her to accompany him. The worker asked him why he was always kind to her. The poor guy knew that if he continued asking questions in the same spirit, things could get even worse. She continued to desire the young master. The girl understood that she was in no position to ask about such things. The boy realized that Louis had followed them into the forest. The young gentleman remembered that he had told Marvin to look after the dog. Martin grinned and assumed that the dog wanted to join them because he had missed the picnic. The Duke asked Rin to look after the dog while he was hunting. The aristocrat reminded him that he knew that Elizabeth did not give the girl a minute of rest. The orphan felt incredibly hurt that she couldn't tell the guy about her feelings. The girl only thanked the gentleman. The dove with its luxurious snow-white feathers stood out beautifully against the blue sky. The aristocrat crouched down, took aim with his crossbow and fired. The bird began to quickly lose altitude, falling down. The lady, sitting by the window, looked at the beautiful landscapes of the garden. She could not understand what was going on in her brother's head. Elizabeth knew that he had never shown interest in servants before. The aristocrat did not even show much interest in his younger sister. The girl asked for another cup of tea. Elizabeth had reasons to look for a girl like Rin. The orphan was incredibly similar to the most revered woman in the entire empire. Her Highness Regina was the sole heir to the Empress. The Duke often compared the girl to Her Highness. The man was often angry with his daughter because she could never do things properly. The father realized that the little girl had not learned anything during her studies. The man was furious that his daughter only went around torturing the servants. He realized that Elizabeth would never reach the same level as Her Highness. The princess seemed absolutely perfect. Everyone loved her. Regina could become the first empress of the Empire of the Throne. The Duchess was madly upset thinking about it. Hearing a knock on the door, the aristocrat allowed the girl to enter. The maid reported that the lord had invited her to have tea with him. Elizabeth jumped up from the windowsill happily. She said that she was almost bored to death. The girl said that if she had known about this, she would have prepared in the morning. Muriel clarified that she should answer the lord. The angry lady asked if she had seen what she was going to do. Elizabeth ordered the servant not to stand there like a pillar and to pass on her message. Rin carefully examined the bird's body, which lay motionless on the soft grass. She couldn't understand why the young master shot the bird if it wasn't meant for food. As if hearing her thoughts, Martin asked why the girl was looking at the shot bird like that. He assumed that the girl felt sorry for the animal. The orphan asked what to do with the bird now. The girl said that she could bury it. Martin allowed this to be done, having sprinkled the body with a few handfuls of earth. She realized that this was the best thing she could do for the bird that had suffered such a senseless death. The girl realized that she was not much different from the bird, since her life also depended on other people. The boy asked the maid if she felt better. The maid said that it was not so because the bird would never hear her. The aristocrat said he had lost interest in hunting. The little girl assured him that she would not mind staying longer. She realized that she had hurt the master's feelings. Martin noticed that she looked scared like a rabbit. The aristocrat suggested that the girl show him what she did when she came to the forest. The girl assumed that the gentleman would not find this very interesting. Elizabeth noticed that she hadn't seen her friend for a long time and asked if he felt comfortable. The girl sincerely hoped that her father would talk about a marriage between their families. The lord said that he had settled down well thanks to the man. The young lady assured that she personally supervised this. She reported that they drank tea together and walked in the garden. The Duke asked whether Philip had enjoyed spending time with his daughter. The guy said that the aristocrat tried her best to make him feel at home. The man jumped up abruptly and asked if his daughter had seen him talking to Philip. The girl was sure that this was a great opportunity to earn her father's favor. She could not realize that her father had disgraced her in front of her lover. Martin noticed that his father was in excellent control. Since time immemorial, noble families have used marriages of convenience for their own benefit. Betrayal was also not uncommon between such couples. But House Araput and House Hargreaves were exceptions to this rule. The Duke and the Earl's family remained allies for years, sharing similar political views. They tried their best to support each other, The whole empire knew about the relationship between the two great noble families. The lord politely informed that this estate was his second home. The man assured that he had met Alex at the palace the other day. The duke said that his father had asked about Philip. The young man asked what he had told his father. His lordship informed Alex that his son had arrived safely at the estate. The man asked who had the better luck on the hunt yesterday. Martin explained to his father that his friend had not been feeling well, which is why he had gone hunting alone. The owner of the estate asked if the guest was feeling better. The lord reported that the rest had been beneficial. The man asked his son if he had gone hunting alone. The duke asked how everything had gone. The guy said it wasn't that bad. Martin explained that he was able to move around the forest more freely. His sister caught him in a lie because he took Rin with him. The girl knew that he understood perfectly well that if she entered into the conversation, her father would get angry. Elizabeth realized that her father's attitude toward her and her brother was strikingly different. The young lady assumed that this attitude was due to the fact that her mother had died after giving birth to her. She knew that her father blamed her for the Duchess's death. The man did not ignore his daughter in public, but in his own domain he openly despised Elizabeth. As a child, the little girl broke things to attract her father's attention. The duke ignored her so she wouldn't break anything. The little girl decided to switch to things that are quite difficult to break, but there was only complete disregard. The butler came up and said something in the gentleman's ear. The man said that he had some urgent business to attend to. The duke asked the guest to continue enjoying the meal. The lord admitted that he was always nervous in the presence of his friend's father. Philip noticed that he had not seen the girl's maid. He assumed that the maid had gone out on some errands. The embarrassed aristocrat asked who he meant. The friend said that he was interested in a girl with silver hair. Clutching the hem of her dress tightly, the aristocrat said that Martin had taken her hunting with him. The girl explained that she had given the worker the day off. The guy understood who his friend was telling him about. The lord asked who he had caught during the hunt. Philip asked what his friend had been doing with the maid. Bright rays of the sun flooded the forest glade. Rin assured that this berry was Swedish tart and very tasty. The maid reported that this plant was one of her favorites. The master assumed that she knew a lot about plants. The girl said that her mother taught her a lot when she was alive. The little girl assumed that she bored Martin with her personal stories. The youth assured that he would like to listen more. Smiling, the duke said that he had found more interesting activities. But he did not respond to his friend's interest in this. Elizabeth could not understand why her brother was smiling like that. The jewelry box fell to the floor and the jewelry scattered across the floor. The maids gathered around, not understanding why Rin was standing in the middle of the room. With a trembling voice, the maid said that she did not do it. The mistress asked her to stop lying to her. The lady said that the maid was the last one to touch the necklace. The girl, trembling all over, said that she had nothing to do with it. She assured that she had put the necklace in her jewelry box immediately after the picnic. Elizabeth asked Miruel if she had shared a room with the thief. The lady explained that she wanted to see everything herself. The maid said that they could not take the girl there because they needed permission from the head maid. Smiling, Elizabeth asked if she wanted to say that she needed permission from some maid. The girl ordered to take her there without wasting a moment. When the workers saw Elizabeth, they realized that someone had made a grave mistake. No one knew what reason had brought the mistress to the servants' quarters. Miruel gently touched the lady's shoulders, begging her to calm down. The girl hit the maid with fury and squeezed her throat tightly. Elizabeth clarified where the room was that Rin lived in. Being furious, she continued to squeeze the servant's throat with her hands. The maids began to quickly run to the scream of the mistress. They discussed what had happened. The cook winced when she realized that her mistress was blaming Rin again. The woman understood that stealing from her masters was a serious crime for a servant. She knew the little girl was hardworking and honest. The cook was sure she would never do something like that. None of the workers had anything bad to say about the girl. The orphan carried out the difficult task without any complaints. The girl assumed that it was some kind of misunderstanding. The cook reminded them that their opinion did not matter. The cook knew that servants had no right to object to their masters. The sobbing orphan asked to check her things, assuring that she had not stolen anything. The lady tore off her headdress and brought Rin to her knees. The cook ran up and suggested that the lady let the baby go until the circumstances were clarified. The young lady thought that she had ordered her. The sadist assumed that the occupation of a high position had turned her head. The woman understood that she had worked for the Duke for decades, and had been at the estate long before his children were born. The head maid knew that if her ladyship had been alive and had showered the little girl with love and warmth, she would not have become like this. The woman was sure that if Elizabeth's mother had survived, she would not have tormented the servants. The girl said that if she had done her job properly, this would not have happened. The boss asked the young lady if she was sure that the necklace had been stolen. The aristocrat was furious that she had caught her in a lie. The cook reported that this was a rather serious crime. The head maid reported that she had no choice but to inform his lordship of the incident. The woman was sure that the duke would punish the culprit. The young aristocrat realized that if her father kicked Rin out, he would despise her even more. Elizabeth assured that this was not necessary. The girl ordered the worker to be locked in the eastern room until she confessed. Milady lost her temper when she heard some indignation. Elizabeth said that she couldn't allow her father to throw Rin out into the street. The head maid roughly took the little girl by the hand and dragged her towards the door. The employee shuddered at the sight. The headmistress assured her that she did not need an escort. Tears slowly flowed from the orphan's eyes. She sincerely did not understand what was happening. The woman apologized to the little girl, saying that was all she could do. The girl fell to her knees and claimed that she had done nothing. The elder woman said that she knew this but could do nothing. The woman was sure that the lady would soon come to her senses. The boss promised to come for Rin as soon as the mistress calmed down. The woman understood how disappointed the little girl was. She assured him that the worst was over. The door slammed shut, leaving Rin alone in the dark room with her thoughts. The little girl was glad that the other maids considered her innocent. Mireille brought the girl something to help pass the time. The orphan was glad that she would be able to spend a few days away from her cruel mistress. A few days later, the head maid came and told the girl to go out. The maid was ready for a new punishment. The stolen necklace was found in the mistress's room. Elizabeth greeted the accused casually. When the maid was braiding the girl's hair, she admitted that the jewelry was stuck in a crack in the box. The lady was sure that if she had put it down properly, this would not have happened. Rin stammered that she had not taken the necklace. The aristocrat snapped back, saying that it had been found. The young lady thought that she should be grateful that she had not told her father. Rin knew that her pride was worthless because she had nowhere to go. She dreamed of finding someone who could love and protect her. Mireille was delighted by how cute her friend looked. The orphan felt embarrassed that she tried so hard on her hair. The employee reported that she had to stand up for her colleague during the incident. The girl assured that there was nothing terrible about it, and was grateful that she believed until the end. Mireille asked not to forget about what she asked to buy. The orphan was delighted with her first opportunity to go out. The girl was glad that the duchy paid good salaries and everyone had days off. She bought a novel and sewing supplies. Rin wanted to buy something for the young master. The girl understood that she would never be able to tell him about her feelings. The maid wanted to give her lover a small parting gift. The worker dreamed that Martin would remember her for the next 6 years. She realized that she had bought an extra book. Someone grabbed her by the shoulder from behind and called her by name. The girl shuddered and looked around in fear from the sharp touch. Seeing her puzzled look, the guy reminded her that he was her childhood friend. Rin couldn't believe that he was really standing in front of her. The maid couldn't understand how her friend had managed to grow so much. Minos admitted that he had done a lot of physical labor. The friend explained that he was very worried when he heard that she had left the hotel. The guy said that he had only heard rumors because Vesti did not want to talk about it. The little girl remembered that he said that he would be a butler's apprentice. The orphan did not know that this job required physical labor. The young man said that he was tired of working for the nobles and he left. Minos asked if his girlfriend was free. He suggested having a bite to eat in a restaurant. The employee admitted that the offer sounded tempting. The maids gathered near the window watching as Rin talked with some guy. The workers couldn't believe their eyes. The stranger was quite handsome and tall. The brunette assumed that the young man was the little girl's boyfriend. Mireille said that her neighbor knew nothing about the relationships between men and women. The girls assumed that one day the little girl would announce that she was getting married. The workers understood that if Rin had a partner, she would have quit. The girlfriends suggested that Mireille ask her neighbor everything. Martin quietly watched the worker through the window. The guy realized that the new messenger had already arrived. The Duke realized that he was acquainted with Elizabeth's personal maid. Martin began to squeeze his hands tightly, realizing that he had never seen the girl smile like that. The boy ordered the butler to cancel all meetings related to the academy for that day. The young man said that he wanted to go hunting. The worker reminded the gentleman that he was leaving for the academy in a couple of days. Martin assured him that he would take care of it later. Sitting by the lake, he threw pebbles and they slid easily across the water. For some time the boy did not see Rin. He could only hear gossip about her. The gentleman began to look for the baby in those places where they accidentally crossed paths. The guy was furious that the maid was on a date all this time. Martin spent a lot of time on this. He stamped, crushing the delicate petals of the daisy. Stroking the horse on the bridge of the nose, the guy said that he didn't want to lose his temper with the flower. The aristocrat realized that he had never worried about anyone before. Rin looked around and realized that she had lost track of time. The girl jumped back in fear when she heard a rustle in the bushes. A gentleman came out of the thick branches. The little girl, confused, asked what he was doing in the garden. Martin handed her a handful of her favorite berries. Rin asked why he handed them to her. The young master could not understand why the girl did not smile at him as she did at the messenger. The duke felt stupid. He turned around and decided to leave. The maid stopped him and handed him an embroidered handkerchief. The girl said that marigolds were embroidered on the fabric. She said that she knew about his imminent departure to the academy. Letting her hair down, she wished him a good life without illness. The guy asked her to wait a bit, explaining that he had also picked some wild flowers. The gentleman asked if she liked the bouquet. Soon after, the young duke left for the academy. Rin was glad that she had the opportunity to give him a gift. The little girl watched with a tear-stained face as the carriage slowly moved away. The worker cleaned his room at every opportunity because she wanted him to feel comfortable upon his return. The years flew by and the girl didn't have time to come to her senses before the 6th spring arrived without him. She turned 19. Running to her roommate, Mirael said that they didn't have time and all the staff was being gathered in the hall. The girl reported that the young gentleman had returned. The orphan's heart fluttered. She realized that the lady had not mentioned anything about it. Rin couldn't believe that 6 years had passed so quickly. The maid was happy to realize that Martin had finally returned home. Elizabeth greeted her dear brother. The girl hoped that his trip went smoothly. The sister assumed that Martin was tired. She reported that the maid had already prepared the bath. Our heroine realized that her mistress was not in the best mood. The orphan understood that on this day she needed to be especially careful. She couldn't believe that the young master had finally returned home. Mirael reported that the water was warm enough. The woman noticed that Martin had become even more handsome. She hardly recognized him. Rin was curious if the master remembered her. The girl said that she would go and bring more towels. During the exit, she bumped into the master's luxurious torso. The girls blushed and screamed, asking for forgiveness. Martin coldly informed her that they could go if the bath was ready. With a shudder in her heart, the girl realized that the guy was not the one she remembered. The friend asked Rin not to stand there like a pillar and to come out. The maid felt that she had been waiting for Martin in vain all this time. The people quickly gathered to discuss when the last ball in the Duchy of Ariput was. They were glad that young Master Martin had finally returned from the academy. The guy was one of the best in his class. The guy was the perfect age to get engaged. There was a great bustle in the kitchen. His lordship had decided to celebrate his son's return with a grand party. On the first day, the men planned to have fun at the shooting range. For the ladies, a tea party was organized. From the second day on, everyone will gather together. Mirael shared with her friend that she was very tired of the organization of this party. Rin realized that everyone was focused on only one person. The girl realized that all the aristocrats were hanging around the young gentleman, competing for his attention. Rin realized that the young master stood out from the crowd. Elizabeth was extremely annoyed that everyone was focused only on her brother. The lady asked Rin to bring her a fan from the room because it was getting hot. After the positive answer, an unkind smile appeared on the aristocrat's face. She intentionally dropped her clutch, causing Rin to trip. The maid accidentally stained Milady's dress with red wine. She began to scream furiously, realizing that she had stained her expensive dress. Those present began to discuss that a simple servant had spilled a drink on Lady Betty Ford. The girl sighed heavily and said that this was expected. Elizabeth reminded her personal maid that she had asked her to be more careful. Martin asked Milady if she had been hurt. The girl was delighted that he remembered her name. Smiling, the aristocrat said that he could not forget such a beautiful girl as her. Running up to the injured maid, her colleagues asked if she could get up. Bowing his head, the guy said that he could take care of it since their servant had made a mistake. Martin remembered that his sister had recently bought a red dress. He said that Elizabeth would be glad if she looked at it. I will inform you that this dress was the only one in the entire empire. Betty was amazed because even Princess Regina could not get this dress. The Duchess clutched the hem of her dress tightly, remembering how much effort it had cost her. Elizabeth smiled falsely, expressing her hope that her guest would like it. The mistress ordered the maids to clear the table and bring tea and soft drinks. Bowing her head, The orphan began to ask for forgiveness. The guy advised her to rest a little. Rin couldn't believe that he actually remembered her. Miratel promised to take care of Rin and thanked the master. The girl still could not believe that the master had not forgotten her name. The guest said that she liked the dress. The Duchess left the room and angrily threw the first thing that came to hand. She remembered how much effort she had put into getting this dress. Elizabeth had longed to appear in it before Princess Regina one day. The girl realized that her brother hadn't changed a bit and remained the same idiot. The 3-day party was a success. Elizabeth remained silent after the incident with Betty. The orphan is eager to take advantage of the turmoil to take another look at the master. The girl looked out from behind the column uncertainly, realizing that Martin was surrounded by his peers. Rin had managed to forget that he was a busy man. She reminded herself that she had to be content with looking at him from afar. Someone called out to her, assuming that she was Elizabeth's personal maid. Philip took out a lot of candy from his pocket. He generously poured out treats for the maid, hoping that she would perk up a little. Rin thanked him for his generosity and asked him to let her know if she needed anything. The Lord said it was time for him to return to Martin. The maid hoped that on this day she would be able to stop thinking about her master. There was a great commotion as the gentleman was moving into the guest house. The maid who saw this decided to tell the others. After the evening ended, Martin immediately moved to the guest house. The former Duchess spent her last days in that house. No one knew why the boy decided to move there. Rin reassured herself that it was for the best. She hoped that during this time she would be able to suppress her feelings. Miruel asked her friend not to tell anyone about it. The girl shared that she had bumped into Laura, who worked in the guest house. The maid said that Martin had parties every night. Miruel reported that there was an unprecedented noise in the guest house. She was sure that young people did many indecent things at night. Rin realized with pain in her heart that Martin is not the sweet boy she remembered. The orphan wanted to know what happened to her beloved while he was at the academy. The aristocrat boldly stepped onto the table and continued her dance there. The girl reported that this dance was especially popular among commoners. Elena approached the guy and asked why he was just sitting there, indifferently watching what was happening. The owner of this place clarified her name. The girl explained that her name had not changed. She noticed that there was nothing attractive about the guy from the very beginning. Elena asked the aristocrat what he was hiding from her. The aristocrat was not satisfied with his answer. She said that she knew what had happened while he was at the academy. The Lord said that without Elena he was not happy at all. The girl carefully poured wine into the Duke's glass. He knew it was the best thing he could do at the moment. Martin was eager to hide the unpleasant truth about his family. The lady was very irritated by her brother's behavior. Elizabeth understood that while he lived in the guest house, she practically did not meet with Philip. The girl realized that this was the perfect moment to gain her father's favor. She ordered Rin to go and check on Martin. The aristocrat was eager to report this to her father. The orphan asked when she should begin this task. The lady said irritably that she must carry out orders immediately. Elizabeth sighed heavily and reported that there was not a single maid who did not get on her nerves. The lady said that she could go there after finishing her business at the estate. Rin walked hesitantly along the paths illuminated by the moonlight. The girl realized that she had never been to the guest house. She did not know whether she should greet the young gentleman. Rin was wondering who the lady was next to Martin. Someone snuck up on her and grabbed her by the neck. The guy ordered me to resist and take off my cap. Martin strictly ordered the guest not to touch the girl. The maid could not understand why he came to her aid. The master asked what she did it near his house at such a late hour. Rin explained that the lady wanted to know if everything was okay with him. Martin strictly ordered to follow him. The girl realized that she had never seen the red-haired stranger. The maid could not understand why she reminded Her Highness Regina so much. Entering the empty room, Martin asked what his sister wanted by sending the girl to him. The orphan repeated the same story again. She asked the master for forgiveness. Rin realized that she had upset the master somehow. The master suddenly pulled her face to his and kissed her. The guy asked me to pass this on to his sister so you know how he's doing. Martin noticed that the maid blushed deeply. He expected the girl to run away. Rin hadn't realized it until this moment. But now she realized that if she didn't leave now, there would be no way back. She had heard of the indecencies that went on between men and women at night. Martin had warned her that they would not end with a kiss. The guy asked if she was ready to go through this. The orphan realized that she had no right to do this to her lover. The girl knew that Martin was destined to become the next duke, and she would forever remain a servant. The orphan remembered all the warm moments associated with the master. She always admired the young man from afar. Rin thought about following the call of her heart. The maid understood that this was her only chance to spend the night in the arms of the man she liked. Letting her silver hair down, the girl announced that she wanted to stay. She decided to follow her instincts. Martin roughly laid the maid on the bed and bit her neck. The moaning girl asked why he bit her. Rin felt like her heart was on fire. She tried to concentrate, but her head was spinning. Soon the uniforms were scattered on the floor. The guy couldn't understand why she was covering her face. The maid admitted that she had never done anything like that before. Opening his shirt, the Duke assumed that the guy meant nothing to Rin. Martin bared his luxurious muscular torso. The girl didn't even guess that Martin had such a beautiful body. She realized that the master would use it to subjugate her to his will. The time spent together felt weightless. She tried to cling to that tiny feeling of warmth for comfort. The girl was ready to pray to feel it again. The sun's rays broke through, illuminating the maid's face. The orphan was exhausted by the events of the previous night. Miruel noticed that her friend looked pale. The girl assumed that the reason for her paleness was getting up early. The friend hugged Rin tightly, assuming that she had gotten up early for her. The little girl said that it was the least she could do for her. The maid was glad that her neighbor had not noticed her absence. Rin couldn't stop thinking about the events of the previous night. The girl understood that this was enough. She wanted to erase those events from her memory and continue living as if nothing had happened. Elizabeth asked how her brother was chewing. The servants assumed that Martin was doing well. The aristocrat squeezed the rose so hard that her hand was cut by the thorns and began to bleed. Rin realized that she needed to treat her mistress's wound. The girl shouted and ordered her to go and wash her underwear. The orphan was curious about how her ladyship took the news. She couldn't understand why the lady was angry that her brother was doing well. The aristocrat angrily hit the worker in the face, telling her that she had to redo everything. The more intense the pain became, the easier it was for Rin to put the events of that night out of her head. The girl felt as if her body was on fire. Martin came up from behind and gently hugged her around the waist and kissed her. The gentleman asked Rin to be honest with herself. The girl woke up in her own bed, glad that her neighbor was fast asleep. The orphan suggested that a walk would help her clear her head of such thoughts. The girl sat on the edge of the fountain looking at the starry sky. She remembered that hot night again. Suddenly, unexpectedly, she heard the voice of the gentleman. Martin said he expected to find her there together. The maid asked what brought the guy to this place at such a time. The Duke pinned her to a tree and asked how she dared to leave without saying a word. The aristocrat reminded her that she had moaned in his arms the night before. Rin said that she was a worker and needed to do her daily duties. The guy remembered the letter his mother had written. The woman suggested in her suicide note that her husband already knew everything. Elizabeth was not the Duke's daughter. Mom asked Martin to make sure that Elizabeth remained a noble lady for the rest of her days. The Duchess asked to inherit the title as quickly as possible to protect the girl. The boy realized that if his father found out the truth, he would get rid of his sister before he became a full-fledged duke. He was afraid that evil tongues would not be silenced. Martin asked the maid to come to the guest house every night. The guy asked to do this until he got tired of the girl's presence. The Duke knew that he needed to create a loud scandal. The guy planned to play out a flawless plot. The maid falls in love with her master. The couple cares for each other, realizing that their love will not bear fruit. The woman was furiously beating the girl who dared to seduce her son. The lady was furious that everyone stood aside as if they did not hear her. Tears slowly trickled down the aristocrat's face. His mother ordered the seductress thrown into the dungeon. The heroine was locked in a damp dungeon. Martin couldn't understand why he had taken up this novel now. The guy realized that he saw his future in it. The master informed Rin that he had not asked her anything. The maid realized that there was not a drop of the sweet boy's character left in the master. The girl understood that he still spoke with a kind voice. She felt coldness and insincerity. The gentleman admitted that he was interested in her. Rin couldn't believe that he saw love in her. The aristocrat explained that he was interested in her only as a new toy. The girl's heart seemed to burst in her chest, giving only a loud blow. She couldn't understand why she had hoped for this. The orphan realized that he saw her as nothing more than a convenient toy. The maid knew that Martin was only interested in her body, which provided pleasure. The girl said that you would not be able to come to the guest house every night because you lived with another maid. Martin asked if that was the only thing that worried her. The guy suggested that he just needed to solve this problem. The youth promised to take care of it on his behalf. The aristocrat asked her not to forget that she had to come to his room every night. The workers realized that the working day had finally come to an end. Each of the girls could not wait for the next day off. Rin was glad that the day had passed without any troubles. She praised her colleague for her excellent work. The girl didn't know how to get into the guest house without making too much noise. Rin suggested that her friend go and have a bite to eat. The elder informed the orphan that she had to pack her things. The woman assured that she had received an order to transfer her to the guest house. Rin was curious about why they wanted to transfer her there. The worker whispered in the girl's ear that Martin had ordered it. The head maid couldn't understand why she would do this since Rin belonged to the mistress. The woman assumed that the worker herself knew the reason. The worker asked if the girl knew the truth about the reason for this. The orphan assured that she had no idea what was going on. The girl realized that it would not be easy for her if rumors spread. All the maids were eager to discuss this event. Rin was curious if she could return to the room she shared with her friend. She felt many contemptuous glances on her and wanted to run away. The orphan hesitantly knocked on the master's room. Realizing that she had no other choice, she knew what awaited her beyond the threshold of this room. The girl experienced a strange feeling thinking about it. The gentleman admitted that he was already going to follow her. His words seemed sincere. Rin knew that after his touch her feelings would disappear. This love was a poison that she could not resist. One of the workers told Elizabeth the latest news. The girl asked again. After listening to the details, the lady said that she would have to do something. The rays of the sun woke Rin up and she stood up, looking around her new room. After a stormy night, the girl felt tired. Several weeks had passed since the first such incident. Before that, the orphan could not even dream of spending the night in the arms of a young gentleman. She wanted to ask for help instead of going back to the guest house. She didn't know how Martin would react to that. The maid knew it was consensual. She was afraid that people would judge her for her selfish motives. Rin realized that the aristocrat had given her the attention and love she craved. The girl felt only emptiness. She couldn't come to terms with the cold, hard truth. Rin knew she was the object of his desires. The maid understood that people of her position should not lust after their masters. The workers were discussing the delicious food that Martin had left for them. There were pies and some meat on the table. One of the workers doused Rin with a glass of cold water. The maid pretended that it happened by accident. The brunette assumed that Rin was the girl who seduced the young master. The maid suggested that the seductress was using her silver hair to her advantage. The girl admitted that she hated those who could get everything with the help of a beautiful face. The senior maid asked what her subordinate was doing. The woman reminded that bullying was prohibited among the staff. The brunette reported that these actions were justified. Rin noted that since she was transferred, the others tried to ruin her life. The girl realized that even Muriel avoided her, and she understood her perfectly. The orphan knew that her friend's actions were justified. As the bullying intensified, Rin's thoughts began to wander. She understood that this was unacceptable, but she began to rely on the protection of the young master. The girl was afraid of what Milady would do to her when the truth came out. The maid was afraid that everything might not end with just her dismissal. Rin knew she must not be caught under any circumstances. The woman walked around the courtyard and called the young milord. She lightly touched his shoulder, but the boy said it hurt. The Duchess said she had been knocked off her feet while looking for him. She suggested going back to the estate, but she noticed blood on his palms and assumed it was from the sharp thorns of the roses. The woman said that it hurt her to see his wounds. Opening his eyes, the guy realized that it was just a dream. Martin remembered that Her Highness had not appeared to him in his dreams for a long time. The guy understood that Regina would soon ascend the throne. He missed the warm embrace of a woman. The queen gave him warm embraces every time he visited the palace. Martin realized that the woman was the only one who treated him kindly. The aristocrat assumed that this was the reason he was looking for Rin. The gentleman reminded the girl that she was obliged to knock on his door. He couldn't understand why the maid looked like she was about to cry. Without thinking, the girl threw herself into his arms. Rin asked him to do it to her again. The orphan was yearning to fill the void inside herself. People around her treated her badly. The maid felt that she was exhausted morally and physically. Deep in her subconscious, she knew that the master had dragged her into this. She felt comfortable only in his arms. One of the maids heard loud moans in the middle of the corridor. Smiling, the girl decided to immediately inform her mistress about it. There was a great deal of bustle in the market. Each vendor was trying to sell his wares to the onlookers who were walking between the rows. Lisa announced that they had a new dessert and offered to bring it. The orphan realized how long it had been since she had had a day off. She spent most of her nights with Martin. The guy waved to his girlfriend. The girl asked her childhood friend with concern whether she had kept him waiting for too long. Only with Minos did the maid feel calm. The guy said he ordered something interesting and assumed she would like it. Minos was always out to sea and only returned a couple of times a year. She was glad to meet him. Her friend handed her a tray with many sweets. He made me happy with the news that he would be working on land for some time. Minos suggested that he go to another restaurant on his next day off. The guy noticed that his girlfriend looked paler than usual. The angry worker asked Rin if anyone had offended her. The friend suggested that the maid had problems with her boyfriend. The orphan realized that the friend had a wonderful induction. The guy said that all men were animals. The worker advised to fall in love only with those guys who are ready to swear their love to her. Minos noticed that his girlfriend had an excellent appetite lately. The guy said that this was good because the more she ate, the better her health. Rin realized that her friend was the only one who treated her well. He asked her to tell him if someone offended the girl. It seemed to the maid that an eternity had passed since the last time someone had worried about her. The bullet whistled and shattered the glass into many small pieces. The boys were amazed by the abilities of the milord. The future duke had unrivaled shooting skills. Touching Rin's chest, the guy asked who left this bruise. The girl assured that she had simply made a mistake while working. Martin was distracted by his thoughts and missed. The guy assumed that the bruise on his partner's chest was left by her sister. The aristocrat remembered that Elizabeth had become less hot-tempered lately. Martin couldn't understand why the girl didn't tell him anything. The guy noticed that his toy had already arrived. He was furious when he realized that Rin was smiling at some idiot. The aristocrat remembered that his beloved had never smiled at him like that. Rin confidently knocked on her master's door. He sternly asked her to come in. The girl, as always, stretched out her hands to his torso. Martin stopped his toy and invited her to sit at the table. The guy suggested that the maid have dinner together. Rin was not used to sitting with her lover at the same table. She was used to sharing with a guy only in bed. The aristocrat asked why she had not eaten, and suggested that the meat was tough. He thoughtfully offered his help to the maid. Rin assured that she was full. The guy asked his beloved what she did on her day off. The orphan said that she had lunch that day with a childhood friend. The young gentleman asked her to try at least a little, and assured her that she would not find such food in city restaurants. He was curious if the girl would smile at him like she had in the past. With her eyes downcast, the orphan said that she wanted to go back to her room. Martin carefully handed her a piece of meat. He jumped up from his chair and said that he had changed his mind. The guy ordered the maid to undress and climb onto the bed. The aristocrat realized that this was not what he had been longing for. The young master assumed that the maid was tired. The boy remembered their first meeting. Elizabeth asked for a personal maid as if she were a toy. Her father coldly informed her that he would ask Marvin to take care of it. The man asked his daughter why she needed it. The young lady said that she needed a girl who would be punished in her place. Milady realized that her personal maid could receive punishment in her place. Elizabeth was a cruel egotist. After some time, Rin appeared in the estate for the first time. When the boy was relaxing in the garden and listening to distant voices, he hoped that they would shut up. The aristocrat needed time when he could rest alone. Martin, lying in the fluffy branches of the trees, noticed that a maid was sitting below. The guy assumed that she was shirking, and decided to jump off but saw that the baby was sleeping. He noticed that drops of tears were slowly dripping from the girl's eyelashes. Martin was amazed that a simple servant had the same hair color as the royal family. That day, he became interested in the girl. Up until that moment, the aristocrat had no interest in anything. But there was something about Rin that aroused his interest. The boy wanted to hug the maid day and night. The young master lost his mind when he saw the girl crying next to him. Martin felt like a child who was obsessed with his favorite toy. The boy assumed that it was the feeling of ownership that spoke in him. He was sure that with time it would dissipate like smoke. Martin fell asleep with his beloved, tightly pressing her fragile body to himself. The orphan realized that the mistress had not called her for a long time. Rin was glad for the first quiet day in a long time. A colleague tripped her, causing the orphan to fall to the floor and spill her apples. The girl grinned and assumed that the victim was the slut from the rumors. Marie grinned sarcastically and said that she understood how tired she was from her nighttime pleasures. Rin realized that her colleague had only recently started working for the mistress. The girl immediately managed to gain the favor of Milady. The orphan began to work more around the estate. The little girl felt free from her mistress. Miroelle thoughtfully helped her friend pick apples. Visibly nervous, her friend suggested that Rin had something to tell. The girl apologized for not standing up for her and assured that she would always be on the orphan's side. The maid couldn't understand how her former friend could trust her in such a situation. Rin was glad that she was always ready to support her. She began to hope that the situation would change for the better. Soon all the maids were gathered in the backyard. The workers discussed who had screwed up. Rin realized that fate had other plans for her. The maids were discussing what had happened. Elizabeth swung her whip and it cut through the air, making everyone shut up. Pomraknev's mistress reported that she knew everything, including the vile rumors. The girl reported that she had heard about the impudent maid who dared to seduce her brother. Rin involuntarily covered her mouth with her hands. The mistress ordered the orphan to come forward. Trembling all over, the girl realized that rumors had reached the mistress. The aristocrat grinned and noticed that the maid's impudence knew no bounds. She could not understand how she dared to seduce the heir of the family. Elizabeth said she couldn't let her go unpunished. She said she was a merciful lady. The aristocrat couldn't let Rin do such things any longer. The girl said that she would chop off her toes, since her hands were needed for work. Milady demanded a confession. Ruth asked what was going on. She said that if Elizabeth called all the servants together without notifying the family, then problems could arise in the estate. The aristocrat noticed that the woman was not coping with her duties very well. The visibly nervous senior maid asked what she meant. Elizabeth was sure the woman already knew everything. The aristocrat reminded her what exactly. She moved Rin to the guest house. The girl asked if Martin would drag her into this. The older woman said that it was her own decision. Rin couldn't understand why she lied for her. Ruth assured that she had moved the girl to a guest house and put her in a separate room. The woman recalled that it was the orphan who volunteered to turn off the lights at night. The head maid reported that the job made it difficult to get a good night's sleep, as it had to be done late at night. The woman assured that the suspect had never left her room. Raising her hand, Marie caught the head maid in a lie. Her colleagues couldn't believe she was trying to blame the head maid. Elizabeth asked if the girl had any evidence. The smirking bitch said that the rumors were true. Marie assured that she saw everything with her own eyes. The witness confirmed that Rin had entered the young master's chambers. The aristocrat grinned and ordered the seductress to be tied to a tree. The head maid screamed and asked to stop. The girl was furious when she realized that someone dared to contradict her order. Ruth asked the girl what she was doing in the guest house in the middle of the night. The boss threw a bundle on the floor. The bundle fell on the grass with a loud clang. The woman reported that the servants at the guest house had started to lose jewelry. Ruth reported finding it on the witness.